You got the wrong movie, asshole.
You wanna fight?
Only God Forgives is directed by Nicolas Refn and stars Ryan Gosling, Kristin Scott Thomas, and an extremely talented actor whose name I cannot pronounce. I apologize. This is an interesting movie to describe. The plot of this movie is rather difficult to really sum up quickly. Essentially, you have a man whose brother is killed, and it's a very complicated situation. You're not exactly sure who's on the right side, who's on the wrong side. What exactly do you do in this situation? And it starts a revenge path that leads Julian, played by Ryan Gosling, on a strange, metaphorical, dreamlike journey through some very violent occurrences. I think that's my best way that I can describe this movie, actually. Now, you guys may know this was actually my most anticipated movie of 2013. I loved Drive. I have seen only a handful of films since Drive that I actually think are better than Drive. I really love that movie, and I know a lot of people think it's overrated and don't enjoy it, and that's perfectly fine. Now, this film is available on demand right now and in theaters. I personally downloaded it off of the Vudu app on my PlayStation 3, and I watched it at home, and I gotta tell you, when it downloaded to my PS3, I sat there with a controller, about to press play, and this is what was going through my head. Only God Forgives is downloaded to my PlayStation 3, and I'm about to watch it. Oh my god! If you haven't seen Troll 2, see it. A lot of people were like, Stuckmann's gonna like this movie no matter what. He's gonna think everything about it's perfect, and he's not gonna have any flaws with it because he's a Drive fanboy. Only God Forgives is not a perfect movie. It really isn't. It has a lot of flaws. There are things about the movie that didn't work, and there are things about the movie that were very impressive visually, especially visually. This movie looks incredible. Give me a movie that looks this beautiful over a green screen CGI fest any day. I'm telling you, the cinematography in this movie is astoundingly beautiful. The use of lighting is just immaculate. And that's clearly a humongous talent of Nicolas Refn. He knows what to do with the camera. He can create a very mesmerizing scene, and there are lots of them in Only God Forgives. The movie opens, and I was just instantly riveted by the first 10-15 minutes of this movie. I was just glued to the screen because it was so well made. Okay, so the movie looks good. How does it sound? Beautiful. The soundtrack by Cliff Martinez is just euphoric and really cool, and got this great beat going on in the background a lot of the time, and very deep and dark as well. And I just love the way this movie looked and sound. Aesthetically, this movie is the best looking movie I've seen so far this year, without a doubt. Substance, that's where we run into our problem. The characters in Only God Forgives aren't really characters. All of them are sort of like metaphors for various things. The character of the cop in the movie, I kind of viewed him as a metaphor for God, because he's this all-powerful guy who isn't really even a cop, because I know they say he's a cop, but he doesn't do anything that cops do. He kills whenever he wants, he tortures, he does things that cops just don't do. He lets people kill people all the time. He's not really a cop. So if you look at this movie from a straightforward, factual, realistic sense, you're gonna hate it. But there's a lot of metaphors going on in this film. There are certain scenes in the movie that could be dreamlike, that might have happened, that are existential. It's all very different, okay? If you don't like art movies, or if you didn't like Drive, you're gonna hate this movie. I mean, because this movie makes Drive look mainstream, seriously. If people complain that Ryan Gosling didn't talk enough in Drive, they're gonna watch Only God Forgives and think that he sang Stairway to Heaven in Drive. I mean, he barely says anything in this movie. He has lines that propel the story along, but certainly none that propel his character along. You don't really get to know him as a character, and that brings you back to what I said earlier. The characters in this movie don't really feel like characters or people, they feel like metaphors. Did I like it? Overall, I would say that I was very interested as I watched this movie. There were aspects of this movie that I really liked. I can't say I love the movie. There were things about it that really bugged me, that didn't make sense, that I didn't think had to be there. I know Nicolas Refn has said that he has a fetish for violence, and that is clearly seen in an over-the-top torture scene in this movie that just went too far. Now, I love Drive. That's a pretty violent movie. but all the violence in that movie I felt had meaning. For me, when I watched Only God Forgives, there were certain violent scenes that felt like they were violent just to be violent, without any meaning. And that's the kind of violence that I can't stand. That's the kind of violence that disturbs me, and that's the kind of stuff in Only God Forgives that I did not like. And there's really just one scene and then one shot in the movie that I felt were like not necessary, okay? That doesn't have to go that far. The acting in the movie is really strong. I mean, Gosling is good, it's just he doesn't really have anything to work with. He is essentially something to propel the story along. As I said, he's not really a character. I don't really view him as a character because he really just feels like a metaphor for certain things, especially with the way the film ended, which is going to enrage a lot of people. And there were certain aspects of it that definitely bothered me where I just went, really? Okay, I guess. But then I started thinking about it and I understood what he was trying to say. And for that reason, I was able to come to peace with the way the film ended. I just wish Nicolas Winding Refn would have made a slightly more straightforward story. I'm all for art films. I love art films. I just wish that this film had a more cohesive story and characters that I could get more invested in. That being said, there were moments in this movie that were truly masterful. I mean, masterful, like Stanley Kubrick, great stuff going on here. Moments that really had me on the edge of my seat that I was just like, wow, I can see people watching this 50 years from now and thinking this is an absolute masterpiece. I mean, this is just beautiful. And for that reason, I can't say this is a bad movie. What I will say is it is disappointing and I wanted it to be better than it was. I didn't expect it to be like Drive. I didn't go into this movie expecting that. I just wanted a good movie. It's just not quite what I wanted it to be. Only God Forgives is a beautiful looking movie with a terrific soundtrack, some good performances. It's honestly a movie that I'd like to see again, to examine more. For that reason, I'm going to give the film a B-. I do think that it is a film worth seeing. I do think it's a film that you should examine if you're interested in filmmaking, if you're interested in the art of film. However, mainstream audiences will hate this movie. They will hate it. They will hate it. Do you understand me? They will hate it. And I'm not going to be surprised at all because most people hated Drive too. Don't care. But I got to give major props to Winding Refn for making such a beautiful movie, for being courageous about the stories he's trying to tell, for going away from the whole studio thing, from not caring about what other people say. I do think, however, that Nicolas Winding Refn should definitely hold back on some of the more violent aspects of this film that aren't necessary. If you're going to put violence in your movie, make it have meaning. Make it have a meaning to the story. I feel like some of the aspects of this film did, and then some didn't. And I also know that there were a lot of things that he was trying to tell throughout this movie that I get because he said it publicly in interviews, like, this is what I wanted to do here, this is what I wanted to do with this. But that's one thing if you say that's what you were trying to do. If your film doesn't really explain that to the viewer, or at least make it clear, there are some problems there. So I can't say it's a perfect movie. And there you go, guys. If you thought I was going to love the movie, you were wrong. I gotta be honest with you guys all the time. And remember this, I'm not just going to love a movie just because I was hyped for it. I'll be honest with you no matter what. Thanks as always, guys, for watching. If you see the movie, I'm very interested in knowing what you think about it. It's definitely going to divide viewers. It even divided me a little bit. I still got to think about it a lot, and I'll probably watch it again in the next few days. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.